My name is Amara Chukwu, and I never believed in love at first sight until the day a Korean man walked into my family's restaurant in Lagos and changed my whole life. I was helping my mother serve jollof rice and grilled tilapia at our small restaurant on Allen Avenue when the bell above the door rang. I looked up, and there he was. Tall, quiet, wearing a plain black suit that looked too expensive for our street. His eyes moved around the room like he was searching for something, or someone. "Welcome, oh. Sit anywhere you like," I said, smiling the way my mother trained me to smile at every customer. He sat at table 7, near the window. He didn't order right away. He just stared at the menu like it was written in a language he didn't understand. "Do you need help?" I asked, walking closer. My heart was beating fast, though I didn't know why. He looked up at me, and for a second, neither of us said anything. "I don't know what jollof rice is," he finally said, in careful English with a Korean accent. "But it smells like something my mother used to make. Different, but it reminds me of home." I laughed. "Jollof rice does not remind anybody of Korea, sir." "Maybe not the food," he said quietly. "The smell of a kitchen where someone cooks with love. That is the same everywhere." Something in his voice cracked a little, like he was remembering pain he didn't want to show me. I didn't push. I just nodded and said, "Then let me bring you the best plate in Lagos." His name was Junho. He told me he was in Nigeria for business, though he wouldn't say what kind of business. Every day for 2 weeks, he came back to our restaurant. Every day, we talked a little more. "Why do you keep coming here?" I asked him one evening, wiping down his table. "Because you don't ask me too many questions," he said, smiling for the first time. It was a small smile, but it changed his whole face. "I'm asking you one now," I said, crossing my arms. He laughed softly. "Then let me answer with a question. Can I take you somewhere tomorrow? Not business. Just somewhere I want to show you." My mother, standing behind the counter, was already watching us with narrowed eyes. She didn't trust strangers, especially quiet Korean men who paid in cash and never explained themselves. "Amara, come here," she called after he left that night. "Mama, please, not now," I begged. "That man has secrets," she said, her voice low and serious. "I have seen many men in my life. That one is carrying something heavy on his shoulders. You be careful, you hear me?" "Mama, we're just friends," I said, though my heart didn't feel that way at all. "Friends don't look at each other like that," she said, shaking her head. "Like two people who already know they are in trouble." The next day, Junho picked me up in a black car with tinted windows. I noticed a man sitting outside the car the whole time, watching the street like a guard. "Who is that?" I asked as we drove. "Nobody," Junho said quickly. Too quickly. I stared at him. "Junho, who are you really?" He was silent for a long moment, his hands tight on the wheel. "There are things about my life," he said slowly, "that I have never told anyone. Things from when I was a child. If I tell you, Amara, you may never look at me the same way again." My stomach dropped. "Try me," I whispered. He looked at me, his eyes filled with something between fear and relief. 15 years ago, he began, a man saved my life. A man the whole world called a monster. But to me, he was the only father I ever had. I did not know it then, but that sentence was the beginning of a story that would test my heart, my family, and everything I believed about love. "A monster?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "Junho, what are you talking about?" He pulled the car to the side of the road, near the Lagos Lagoon, and turned off the engine. The silence between us felt heavy, like something was about to break. "When I was 7 years old," he said, staring straight ahead, "my parents died in a fire in Seoul. I had no family, no money, nothing. I lived on the streets for almost a year, stealing food to survive." My chest tightened. "Junho, I'm so sorry." "One night, I tried to steal from the wrong man," he continued. "A man named Cho Min-sung. Everyone in Seoul feared him. He ran one of the biggest business empires in Korea, but people whispered that underneath it, there was something darker. A mafia boss, I said slowly, remembering the word he used in the car. Junho nodded. That is what people called him. I don't know everything that is true and what is rumor. But I know this, instead of punishing a hungry boy, he took me into his home. He gave me a bed, food, and education. He raised me like his own son. Tears filled my eyes without warning. So he saved you? Yes, Junho said, his voice breaking slightly. And now, 15 years later, his enemies are trying to destroy everything he built. And Amara, I think. I think they are coming for me too. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He answered it in fast Korean, his face going pale as he listened. I have to go, he said, starting the car again. Now. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mother found me sitting on the veranda, staring at the stars. You look like someone who has heard something she cannot carry alone, she said, sitting beside me. Mama, if I told you the truth about Junho, would you still let me see him? She sighed deeply. Amara, your father did not raise you to run from truth. Tell me. So I told her everything. When I finished, my mother was quiet for a long time. A boy raised by a powerful, dangerous man, she finally said. That is not a small thing, Amara. That is a mountain. But Mama, he is kind. He is gentle. I have never met a man like him. Kindness does not erase danger, she said firmly. You must protect your heart. But. She paused, softening, you must also let your heart choose. I trust you, my daughter. Just be wise. 2 days later, Junho didn't come to the restaurant. Or the next day. By the third day, I was sick with worry. Then, on the fourth night, he appeared at my window, his shirt torn, a small cut above his eyebrow. Junho. What happened to you? I gasped, rushing outside. They attacked one of our warehouses, he said, breathing hard. My father, Cho Min-sung, he is being accused of crimes he did not commit. His rivals want to use the courts to take everything from him. If they win, everything he built for 15 years will be gone. And Amara. He took my hands, his own trembling. I may be forced to go back to Korea to fight for him. I don't know when I will return. My heart shattered and soared at the same time. Then I'm coming with you, I said before I could stop myself. He looked at me, stunned. Amara, you don't understand what you would be walking into. Then make me understand, I said, gripping his hands tighter. Because I am not letting you face this alone. For the first time since I met him, Junho smiled through his pain. Okay, he whispered. Come to Seoul with me. I had no idea that decision would lead me straight into a world of danger, family betrayal, and a courtroom battle that would decide not just his future, but ours. Seoul was nothing like Lagos. The city lights stretched endlessly into the night sky, and everything moved so fast it made my head spin. I stood outside Incheon Airport, gripping my suitcase, feeling like a small fish thrown into a very big, very cold ocean. You will stay in my father's house, Junho said as we got into another black car. It is safer there. Your father, I repeated carefully. You mean Cho Min-sung? Yes, he said. I told him about you. He wants to meet you. My stomach twisted into knots. Junho, what if he doesn't like me? He squeezed my hand. Amara, he saved a hungry orphan boy off the streets. He is not as cruel as people say. But. He hesitated, he can be intimidating. Just be yourself. The house was massive, like something from a movie, with tall gates and quiet guards standing at every corner. When we walked in, an old man sat in a large chair by the window, his hair completely white, his eyes sharp like a hawk's. So, he said in slow, deep English, studying me carefully, you are the Nigerian girl my son cannot stop talking about. Yes, sir, I said, bowing the way I had seen in Korean dramas, my hand shaking slightly. My name is Amara. He studied me for a long moment before speaking again. Junho tells me you offered to come here, knowing the danger. Why would you do that? I took a deep breath. Because in my culture, sir, when someone you care about is facing a storm, you don't leave them to stand in the rain alone. You bring an umbrella, even if it's small. For the first time, Cho Min-sung's stern face softened, and something like a smile appeared. Interesting, he murmured. Junho, your girl has spirit. But the warmth didn't last long. Later that evening, as I was exploring the garden, I overheard raised voices from the study. I crept closer and recognized Junho's voice, along with another man's, cold, sharp, angry. You cannot bring an outsider into this house during a crisis, the strange voice snapped. Do you know how dangerous this is for her? For us? She is not a stranger to me, Junho argued. Uncle Taeyong, she deserves to know the truth. Uncle Taeyong. I remembered Junho mentioning him, his father's younger business partner, a man he never fully trusted. The truth? Taeyong laughed bitterly. The truth is that our enemies are building a court case against your father, claiming he built this empire through crime and blood money. If they win, everything is gone, the company, the family name, everything. And you want to bring a foreign girlfriend into the middle of it? My heart pounded as I listened, hidden behind the garden wall. She is not just a girlfriend, Junho said firmly. I love her. I froze. Those were words he had never said to me directly. Hearing them through a wall, in the middle of danger and fear, made my eyes fill with tears. Suddenly, a hand touched my shoulder. I spun around, gasping, to find Cho Min-sung standing behind me, his expression unreadable. Eavesdropping, he said quietly, is not polite. But I understand fear makes us do foolish things. Sir, I stammered. Walk with me, he said, cutting me off gently. We walked through the garden in silence before he finally spoke. 15 years ago, I saved a boy nobody wanted. People call me a monster for the things I did to survive in this business. Maybe some of it is true. But that boy became the only good thing I ever built. Now, Amara, they want to take him from me too, through the courts, through lies. I need people around him who will stand firm. Can you be that person? I looked into his tired, weathered eyes and nodded slowly. Yes, sir. I can. He nodded once, satisfied. Then get ready, child. The real storm is only beginning. 3 days after I arrived in Seoul, Junho took me to meet more of his family, and that was when everything got complicated. His aunt, Madame Yunhee, was Cho Min-sung's older sister, a sharp-tongued woman who ran the family's public restaurant business. The moment she saw me, her face changed like she had swallowed something sour. Junho, she said in Korean, though I understood enough from his tense expression to know it wasn't friendly. Then she switched to English, clearly for my benefit. This is who you bring home during our darkest hour? A foreigner? Aunt, please, Junho said, his jaw tight. Do you know what people will say? She continued, ignoring him completely and looking straight at me. The Cho family, already fighting for its name in court, and now the heir brings home a black girl from Africa? They will use this against us. They will say we have no dignity left. My face burned with embarrassment and anger, but I remembered my mother's words, be wise. Ma'am, I said calmly, though my voice trembled slightly, I did not come here to bring shame to your family. I came because I care about Junho, and because I believe good character matters more than the color of someone's skin or where they were born. Madame Yunhee's eyes narrowed, surprised that I answered back. Pretty words, she said coldly. But words do not win court cases. Words do not stop enemies from destroying everything we built. Then let me help in ways that matter, I said, standing my ground. I am not asking for your approval today. I am only asking for a chance. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away without another word. That night, Junho found me crying quietly in the guest room. I'm sorry, he whispered, sitting beside me. My aunt has always been difficult. She lost her husband because of business rivals years ago. She is scared of losing more. It's not just her, I said, wiping my tears. Junho, back in Lagos, my own mother worries about the same things, just from a different side. Everyone thinks our love is a mistake waiting to happen. He took my hands gently. Amara, do you remember what you told my father? About bringing an umbrella in the storm? I nodded. I don't care what my aunt says, or what your mother fears, he said, looking straight into my eyes. I have never felt as safe with anyone as I feel with you. If this family cannot see that, then maybe they need new eyes. Before I could respond, a loud crash came from downstairs. We rushed out to find guards shouting, and Cho Min-sung standing in the living room holding a folded newspaper, his face pale with fury. They filed it, he said grimly. The lawsuit. Tomorrow, it becomes public. They are accusing me of fraud, of illegal business dealings going back 15 years. If the court rules against me, I lose everything, the company, the properties, even this house. Father, we will fight this, Junho said firmly. With what? Uncle Taeyong snapped, appearing from the hallway. Our lawyers say the evidence they've gathered looks strong. Someone from inside leaked information about us. The room went silent. Someone inside the family had betrayed them. Cho Min-sung looked directly at Junho, his eyes heavy with an emotion I couldn't quite name, fear, maybe, or love, or both. Son, he said quietly, 15 years ago, I saved you because I saw something in your eyes, a fighter's spirit. Now I need that fighter. Will you stand with me in court? Junho squeezed my hand tightly before answering. Yes, father, he said. I will stand with you. And Amara will stand with us too. I looked at the faces around me, some doubtful, some desperate, some afraid, and I knew, without a doubt, that our love was about to be tested in ways I never imagined. The days leading up to the court case felt like walking through fire. Reporters camped outside the Cho family gates. Business partners quietly disappeared. And somewhere in that beautiful, cold house, a traitor was hiding in plain sight. We need to know who leaked the information, Junho said one evening, pacing the study while lawyers spread documents across the table. Only a handful of people had access to those old records. Family, Cho Min-sung said quietly. It has to be family. I sat quietly in the corner, watching everything, feeling like an outsider allowed to peek behind a curtain I wasn't supposed to see. But that night, something happened that pulled me deeper into the storm. I couldn't sleep, so I walked to the kitchen for water. As I passed Uncle Taeyong's office, I heard him whispering on the phone. Yes, I gave you the documents, he said in hushed Korean, then switched briefly to English out of habit, just make sure my name stays out of it. Once the company is seized, we split it as agreed. My blood turned cold. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. Once Cho Min-sung is finished, Taeyong continued, Junho inherits nothing. The company becomes yours and mine. I couldn't breathe. Uncle Taeyong, the man who claimed to protect the family, was the traitor. I rushed to find Junho, nearly knocking over a guard in the hallway. Junho. I whispered urgently, pulling him into an empty room. It's your uncle. Taeyong. He's the one who leaked everything. I heard him on the phone. Junho's face went white with shock. Amara, are you certain? I heard it with my own ears, I said, still trembling. He's working with your father's enemies. He wants the company for himself. We told Cho Min-sung immediately. The old man's face didn't show anger at first, only deep, quiet sorrow. My own sister's husband, he murmured. I trusted him for 20 years. Father, we need proof, Junho said. Without evidence, it's just words against words in court. That was when I remembered something. The phone call, I said quickly. If we can get his phone, maybe there are messages, records, something. Getting close to Taeyong without raising suspicion was dangerous, but the next morning, I volunteered to help serve tea during a family meeting, something Madame Yun-hee grudgingly allowed since it kept me useful and quiet, as she put it. While pouring tea, I accidentally spilled a cup near Taeyong's briefcase, giving Junho, who was helping me clean up, just enough time to slip a small recording device Cho Min-sung's security team had prepared, connecting to Taeyong's private office computer remotely later that night. By midnight, the family's tech expert had recovered encrypted files, bank transfers, messages, proof that Taeyong had been secretly working with the rival company for over a year. "We have him," Junho said, relief and heartbreak mixing in his voice. But when confronted, Taeyong didn't deny it. Instead, he laughed coldly. "You think this saves you?" he sneered. "The court case is already moving. Even with proof of my betrayal, the accusations against Cho Min-sung's original business, the ones from 15 years ago, those are still real. Some of what they say about him is true, Junho." "Are you ready to hear that in court, in front of everyone, in front of her?" he said, glancing at me with a cruel smile. Junho's hands clenched into fists, but he said nothing. That night, alone in my room, doubt crept in for the first time. What if the man I loved was hiding darker truths I wasn't ready for? I found Cho Min-sung sitting alone on the balcony, staring at the city lights. "Sir," I said softly, "is it true? The things they're accusing you of?" He was quiet for a long time before answering. "Some of it," he admitted finally, his voice heavy. 15 years ago, I did things I am not proud of to survive and protect what was mine. But saving Junho, that was the only pure thing I ever did in this business. Tomorrow, in court, the truth, all of it, must come out." I swallowed hard, my heart racing with fear for what tomorrow would bring. The courtroom was packed the next morning. Reporters, business rivals, curious strangers, all waiting to see if the Cho empire would crumble or survive. I sat in the front row beside Junho, my hand gripped tightly in his. Across the room, the opposing lawyers whispered confidently, sure of their victory. Madame Yunhee sat stiffly beside us, her earlier coldness toward me softened slightly by the fear in her eyes. "All rise," the bailiff announced as the judge entered. The prosecution's lead lawyer stood first, his voice sharp and confident. "Your Honor, 15 years of evidence proves that Cho Min-sung built his empire through illegal means, smuggling, bribery, and intimidation. We ask the court to seize all assets and dissolve the company immediately." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Cho Min-sung sat perfectly still, his face like carved stone. Then, unexpectedly, Junho stood up. "Your Honor," he said, his voice shaking slightly but growing stronger with each word, "may I speak?" The judge nodded, allowing him forward. 15 years ago, Junho began, I was a 7-year-old orphan, starving on the streets of Seoul after losing my parents in a fire. I stole food to survive. One night, I tried to steal from a stranger, a man everyone feared. Instead of punishing me, he took me home. He fed me. He sent me to school. He gave me a family when I had none." His voice cracked, but he continued. "Yes, my father made mistakes in his early years. He has told me this himself. But the man I know built hospitals in poor neighborhoods, funded orphanages across Korea, and gave second chances to people society had thrown away, including me. Punishing him now erases 15 years of good he has done to make up for past wrongs." The courtroom was silent. Even the prosecution's lawyer looked uncertain. Then Junho turned and pointed toward the back of the room, where security guards were quietly escorting in a nervous, sweating Uncle Taeyong. "Your Honor, we also have evidence that this case was built partly on falsified documents, leaked by a family member secretly working with the opposing company for personal gain." Gasps erupted again as the recovered files were presented, bank transfers, secret messages, undeniable proof of Taeyong's betrayal. Taeyong's lawyer immediately objected, but the damage was done. The judge called for a recess to review the new evidence. During the break, I found Junho outside, breathing hard, his hands still shaking. "You did it," I whispered, hugging him tightly. "You were so brave." "I couldn't have done it without you," he said, holding me close. "You found the truth, Amara. You saved my father." When court resumed, the judge's verdict was clear and final. Given the newly presented evidence of falsified documents and internal betrayal, the judge announced, this court finds insufficient grounds to seize Cho Min-sung's current business operations. However, given his admission of past wrongdoing, he will pay significant reparations and submit to 5 years of independent financial monitoring. It wasn't a perfect victory, but it was enough. The empire survived. Cho Min-sung, usually so stoic, broke down in quiet tears as Junho embraced him. 15 years ago, I saved a boy, the old man whispered. Today, that boy saved me. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, but all I could focus on was Junho turning to me, his eyes full of emotion. Amara, he said, taking both my hands, you came into my life as a stranger and became my strength. I don't know what tomorrow holds for this family, for this business, but I know I want you beside me through all of it. Tears streamed down my face as the crowd around us blurred into nothing. 3 months after the court case ended, life slowly returned to something like normal, though nothing about my life would ever be truly normal again. Cho Min-sung, humbled by everything that happened, began rebuilding his company's reputation, this time with complete transparency. Uncle Taeyong was removed from the family and faced his own legal consequences. And slowly, painfully, the family began healing. One afternoon, Madame Yunhee found me in the garden, arranging flowers for a family dinner. Amara, she said, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. I judged you unfairly when we met. Ma'am, you don't have to, I started. Let me finish, she said firmly, though gently. I was afraid. Afraid of losing everything we built, afraid of change. But you stood by this family when even our own blood betrayed us. That means something. She paused, then added, almost shyly, you will make good jollof rice for our next family gathering, yes? I laughed through sudden tears. Yes, ma'am. I will. That evening, my mother called from Lagos, her voice trembling with emotion as I told her everything that happened. Amara, my daughter, she said, I worried so much about you in that faraway place. But it sounds like you found not just love, but also your own strength. I learned it from you, Mama, I said, smiling through my tears. A week later, Junho took me back to the same spot by the Lagos Lagoon where he first told me about his past, except this time, we were in Seoul, standing by the Han River, city lights reflecting on the water like scattered stars. Amara, he said, turning to face me, his hands trembling slightly as he knelt down. 15 years ago, a stranger saved a broken boy and gave him a family. A few months ago, another stranger walked into my life and saved my heart from being broken forever. My hands flew to my mouth as he opened a small box, a beautiful ring catching the city lights. I don't care about the distance between Lagos and Seoul, or the differences between our cultures, or what anyone else thinks, he continued, tears in his eyes. I only care about spending the rest of my life learning your world, if you'll let me. Amara Chukwu, will you marry me? Tears poured down my face as I dropped to my knees in front of him, cupping his face in my hands. Yes, I whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. As he slid the ring onto my finger, I thought about everything that brought us here, a small restaurant in Lagos, a mysterious man with a painful past, a courtroom battle that tested everything we believed in, and a love that refused to break under pressure. Nigerian culture teaches us that when storms come, we hold our loved ones closer, not push them away. Korean culture teaches endurance, honor, and family loyalty above all else. Somehow, impossibly, beautifully, Junho and I found a way to blend both worlds into something entirely our own. 6 months later, we held 2 wedding ceremonies, one in Lagos, full of color, music, and jollof rice, and one in Seoul, quiet, elegant, and deeply meaningful. 2 families, once strangers and skeptics, danced together under the same sky, celebrating a love that crossed oceans, cultures, and unimaginable danger to survive. And through it all, I learned the greatest lesson of my life: love doesn't ask where you're from. It only asks if you're brave enough to stay. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe for more emotional stories like this, and share it with someone who believes in love without borders. Drop a comment below, would you cross the world for love like Amara did? Let me know your thoughts.